The role of an IO psychologist is huge actually. Because I have always worked in this field, I can kind of it starts right from whether you want to hire someone. Now, even when we were working on creating like a psychometric tool.
So if you are comfortable talking about, your experience with the therapy as you were mentioning, so that our viewers know a little bit about the insiders insight, which we can say. Um,
Hello, welcome to Sound Mind. In this episode, you'll watch a conversation I had with Shreya, who is working as an industrial organizational psychologist for past 2.5 years. So, if you are curious about what IO psychology is, and if you are a student of psychology willing to pursue IO psychology in future, you will definitely get an insider's insight, and you will definitely enjoy the video.
Hi Shreya, welcome to Sound Mind.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for our conversation.
Even I'm excited. And so, how are you feeling? Like,
Uh, I feel good. This is the first time I'm actually doing a podcast, so I don't know what's in store, but I am excited. I feel good. Let's see how this conversation goes. Hope you get the answers you're looking for.
and yes, what are the things that inspired you to take up to be an industrial organizational psychologist?
Okay, so my journey has been kind of unconventional in that sense. So actually started with psychology with the aim of being like a conventional therapist slash counselor.
Mhm.
So I actually started with getting a master's in clinical psychology right after my bachelor's. And while I was actually doing my master's in clinical psychology, that's when I was doing like a small internship where we were working on creating like a psychometric tool to test mindfulness. So this was a tool we were making to kind of assess levels of mindfulness in C-suite executives. And the tool development and psychometry was something which was only theoretically something we were already learning during masters. And this internship was a place where we were actually able to apply it, and it made me realize how different these two things are, where you're learning something theoretically and actually practicing it. And also I think while I was studying clinical psychology, you have to undertake like compulsory internships in clinical settings, which is say in either a psychiatric hospital OPD, or under a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. In India, you don't get to see direct clinical psychologist cases. So there's better exposure and more scope for experience or observership under a psychiatrist. So I
Right.
did a few internships in the clinical setting, and I think while I was doing it, I realized that it doesn't seem like my cup of tea, to be very honest. I always thought of myself being a therapist in a long term whenever I used to, think about my future from a professional standpoint. But I think when I actually put myself in the situation, I realized that maybe being a therapist is not something that calls to me so much, because I was enjoying the other internship that I was doing, which was not even directly related to clinical psychology, which is tool development. They're called tools. So you have these assessments for gauging personality skills or cognitive skills, etc. I found more inclination towards research, um, research and development or content creation of that sort. And that was kind of where my interests lied. And then I still finished my master's because it's in the second year of master's that you actually have to do these direct internships. The first year is common for any stream, so either it's clinical counseling or industrial.
Yeah.
So it's in the second year where where towards the end of it I realized that maybe I'm better suited, at least in that phase of life I thought I was better suited for industrial, because I was also, like being a therapist means that you should be able to kind of regulate your own, your own emotions and your own mental health better to be able to give that sort of good service to clients. And in the phase of life that I was in that moment, I thought, maybe it's not the best approach for me then. Maybe again, a few years down the line, I may change my mind and get myself better upskilled. But for me at that point, it was just, I was better suited elsewhere. So that was kind of, and luckily for me, I already got hands-on experience with my internship. So, this was something that kind of really caught my interest. So I started working as a consultant psychologist immediately after my master's. And that's exactly when COVID hit. So in some sense it was good, in some sense it was bad. Good because mental health was something people really kind of started giving importance to.
Yeah.
And that's a, a, a very good thing that happened during COVID for the field of psychology is that people realized that, at the end of the day, it is the mental health that matters. And it's not, it can't be treated secondary or it can't be an afterthought. It has to be, it is, I mean, of course, your physical health is really important, but I would say they really go hand in hand because you can be physically fit, but if you're mentally burnt out or not doing well, it's still going to take an effect on your body. And, so that was, that was when, it was a good thing for the field. But so for me, I kind of then started working with a startup where we were working on creating these personality assessments and the like. And the more I started working in that direction where personality assessment, cognitive skills assessment, etc., I think the more my interest started developing. And now I work as in a sense as an assessment specialist slash consultant. So I work mainly in the field of psychometrics.
So, what generally is the role of an IO psychologist? So, do you only work on psychometrics and the assessments which are done in industries? So the assessments, are they for just the employees, or are they for different another aspects, like it can be a product or it can be a service or it can be analyzing the demands, or like how is a role of IO psychology?
Okay. The role of an IO psychologist is huge actually. Because I have always worked in this field, I can kind of give more insights about my experience and what exactly it is that I do. So, so to kind of answer your question, so whenever it comes to any organizational settings, the workforce kind of makes any organization, right? So you want to kind of know, so there's many aspects to the workforce also. It starts right from whether you want to hire someone. Now, even when you want to hire someone, you of course you want to see if they're technically skilled for it, but you also want to see if their soft skill set matches with the job role and the job demands. So for example, if a very basic example is someone in sales, you kind of want them to be comfortable with people. You want them to be able to communicate well. You want to ensure that they're able to hold conversations, because at the end of the day their job requires them to sell something, which of course requires good communication skills or good people skills in general.
Right.
So again, this is a very basic example, but there's so many jobs out there and there's so many different elements to every job role. So what we do is we design assessments in a way where for any job role we're trying to assess if the soft skills, when I say soft skills, they're not the technical skills, but the the personality skills and your other personality skills is completely wrong. Your personality traits and your general disposition, if that is aligned, and how that aligns with a role. Again, if even if it doesn't align, is a scope for improvement, and to what extent is someone suited for a job or not. So this is just the hiring part of it. Then there's many more uses. So for example, if you're looking to train already pre-existing employees in your organization, you're looking to hire, you're looking to have a leader, like promote a leader within your organization itself. So there's that. So for succession planning, for training and development, for skill development, for job fitment. So for my role, this is mainly what we do. So what we do is we'll kind of analyze what exactly the need of the organization or client is, what are the skill gaps that they can identify, what are the workforce gaps also that they can identify. So we have to kind of conduct an audit of what it is that they need us to help them with. And then based on that is so you also have these, say, employee engagement surveys, whether your employees currently are they engaged or not. And engagement has a direct correlation with productivity and general success in that role as well. This is just one small example. There's so many. You have these 360-degree feedbacks, you have satisfaction surveys, you have these pulse reports. So there's so many things so anything related to an employee's performance, soft skills, personality, their motivation, that's also extremely important. Are their values aligned with their job role or the organization or not? So anything to do with the workforce and how it can help organizations as a whole, that's kind of where my work mainly lies. So this is so this is what we do. So even if organizations, they're facing, say, very high turnover rates, so an analysis of why exactly that is, so to understand. So again, it has to go into a deeper auditing and a deeper understanding of what issues what are the underlying issues that are there, and then building upon that, and then kind of understanding from the employee's perspective, or even from an organizational, from a leadership perspective, and then kind of summating all the data that you have, where it is easily digestible, where it can be easily conveyed, and what to do with that data also. So that there's high turnover, and then you understand the reasons behind it as well, and then how exactly, what do you do with the information that you have. So also the guidelines and the general guidance of how organizations can develop, how organizations can be more successful. So this is when it comes to their workforce mainly, this is mainly the general tasks that are kind of entailed in this job.
What I felt is now it's building a little bit of curiosity in me as well about how obviously the organization might be having the HR department as well.
Yeah.
So how is the role, how it aligns or complements the HR, and maybe I would like to know specifically how is the role different, like what are the
Okay.
differences? Yeah.
So you can put it like the products that we do design, there's something which can be used by the HR. So for example, if you're looking to hire, so an IO psychologist doesn't do the direct hiring per se. It's the HR and the those stakeholders who are more involved in the hiring or the training, etc. Now where we come in, especially say now that we're talking about hiring, so we will kind of help them make decisions based on how we've assessed this particular individual in terms of their soft skills. So again, technical skills is not something that we are concerned with, but again, we we would like to see how the technical skills align with their soft skills, with their motivation, with their values, etc., to the job role. And so this is the product that we kind of make, which will help the HR make better informed and data driven decisions. So even when it comes to training and development, that is something that we can be directly involved in. But again, that's not something that I have directly done. So how I help in that aspect is we've created these, say, development plans. So based on, say, if you're assessing an individual and then you have these certain skill sets, and then you understand whether they're, slightly poor in that particular competency, or they're really good at certain competency, and you want to kind of build upon that because that helps in their job. So then the development plans are designed in a way where you can kind of optimize on the competencies they already have, or you can help them develop the competencies which which are kind of their weaker points, but which are absolutely necessary for that particular job role. So it's more aligned with HR, but yeah, we make this mistake of interchangeably using terminologies of an IO psychologist and an HR professional, and that's not really the case, because these two entities kind of always go hand in hand, and they supplement each other and they complement each other, and are not really interchangeable. Like I think in larger organizations, still I would say psychometric assessments were popular. But India is a place where, again, this is my very subjective view, but is now something that's kind of, people are understanding the importance of it, when they're seeing that, okay, maybe individuals are not so well aligned. And also these tests and these assessments are designed in a way where we're taking into consideration social desirability. So social desirability is when you can fake your way through interviews, and you can fake your way through introductions and things. But we're trying to tap into the more stable and the traits, so the personality traits and the general disposition of this particular person. So these assessments that are designed also take into consideration all of these aspects, and we try to kind of get more insights on things which will also address the social desirability or these fakeness and things like that. So that's kind of mainly the role that an IO psychologist plays. But having said that, there's many more aspects to an IO psychologist's job role, and it's an extremely large field, and there's so
Absolutely.
much that can be done. This is the niche that I have worked in, and this is the only job role that I have always kind of worked in. So my understanding of it is very strictly to the work that I have done so far, because even the work that I've done, I have also worked with colleagues, only those who are working on psychometrics or tool development.
Similar niche,
So yeah, and I mean, I'm still very kind of new to the field. I'm just 2-3 years into it. So I also have a lot to learn in terms of the direct applications and implications of an IO psychologist. So this is very strictly from the point of view of the work that I have done and the exposure that I have got.
yeah, I
Because
understand.
yeah, like I said, industrial psychology is something that has kind of happened for me. It wasn't even really the plan that happened. So,
I
and
understand.
this is luckily for me, this is a field I kind of just started working in, and I got the kind of roles which kind of fueled my interest. So, this is mainly the work that I have done in this field so far.
So yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I think I have learned or read about some roles, about they involved IO psychologist in the product development as
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
service development, and then also analyzing part of it, about also the customer, what we
Yeah.
can say, the customer behavior and
Yeah.
the consumer behavior as well.
You're actually right. So, a lot of the work that I did, we have to be very heavily involved with the UX, which is a user experience.
Right.
So, any say you're making a test, right? So, but the job doesn't stop at that. You also want to see, okay, how much time is a good enough time to undertake this assessment. You have to take into consideration, okay, at what level, like you have to analyze, at what level is the faking happening, or
Okay.
when I say faking happening, what I mean to say is that this social desirability where someone knows they have to answer a certain way to kind of get a
Right.
certain output.
Right.
But what people kind of don't understand is that all of that has been taken into account when the test is being created. So on the back end, even if you think you're kind of gaming the test, on the back end, all of this has kind of been designed in a way where
Okay.
it directly affects your results. So the best approach, I
Exactly.
mean, of course, is to just be as organic as you can be, about these questions, and about these things as possible. So user behavior is a big thing, because say you don't even want something where someone will completely lose interest. So you have to ensure that there's always engagement. Then you also kind of want to ensure that certain colors are not eliciting a certain kind of response. So there's
True.
a lot. Yeah, so there's a lot. So then you have these these UX designers, and then we have to work very hand in hand. We go hand in hand with these people, because at the end of the day, it's like it's an entire product which you kind of want to see it succeed also, and to do its job mainly. So you're right when you mention that IO psychologists are kind of everywhere, if you think about
Right.
it, when it comes to an organization. Because I said, like, the workforce is what makes the organization. People make organizations, and you kind of then the people when the people are an essential part of it. Anything that involves the people, that's where you find industrial organizational psychologists also.
Absolutely. I agree. And so when you were mentioning that people are the organization because they are the one who are going to give out the necessary product which the
Yeah.
organization is made for or is delivering. So, in the last 1 week, I think you might have also been came across the recent incident that
Yeah.
happened with an employee of organization.
I think I can comment on remote work, but yeah, like, having said that, when you see such news, honestly, it's chilling, because you nothing at the cost of life. When you think about it, it feels like like work. It's just work. Your relationships are a part of your life. Your job is a part of your life, and everything else as well. In uh, in my opinion, it's it's easy to say this. It's easy to say that it's just a part of life, but I also feel like it's so subjective, because you don't know why someone is as committed to their
Right.
job also. See, and I also feel like privilege plays a big part in this.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
in the sense where, say, it's easy. So if you're in a bad workplace, and if you have a very good safety net to fall back on, you can just quit and look for another job where it's better. Or even if something doesn't work out for you, it's not as it's not as primary as putting food on the table or sending your children to school. For example, everyone has their own set of issues and
Hmm.
problems. But in my opinion, again, I feel that everything is so subjective, but also it's really important to understand how much you can push yourself as well.
Absolutely.
um there have to be boundaries, and it's so disheartening when you see organizations give absolutely no importance to employee well-being. And again, who's to say what really happened? We don't know, but at the end of the day, you want empathy, and you want, you just want general understanding from the people you're associated with. And uh, like, rather be treated well when you're here than be remembered when you're gone. And this was really eye-opening, because I am someone who did take therapy for for various reasons, but it kind of, for me also, it started because of work stress. And it's incidences like these which again make me very thankful for my privilege, the privilege of being able to take therapy in the first place, the also the privilege of having the resources to take therapy, because that is also so important. And it's instances like these where I am thankful that I took help when I did, because this is extreme, and this is just, to be very honest, frightening when you see instances like these where it directly affects your life, when it becomes like a life and death kind of a situation.
Oh,
And for me, I mean, therapy really helped me when it came to dealing with this kind of stress. And um, again, it's really easy to say just take help whenever you need it when you're going through this situation. But is it that easy is also another question. Is it so accessible, first thing? Is it there's so many questions. Who do you go to? How do you go to? How do you know if you're ready to kind of take help? How do you know if you need help or not also?
right.
So there's many aspects to this incident, and all I can say is it's high time. It's high time people kind of put as much attention into their mental well-being as well. And luckily mental health and psychology are kind of gaining momentum here, but we still have a long way to go.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree. So that is something which I wouldn't. Thanks for that insight, and thanks for shedding light on, all those aspects of being in the therapy. So if you are comfortable talking about, your experience with the therapy, as you were mentioning, so that our viewers know a little bit about the insider's insight, which we can say.
All right. I am completely fine talking about my experience, because one, I want it to not be stigmatized as much as it is. I feel so passionately about the fact that therapy is such a taboo. It's so normal to need help. I keep saying this, and I keep saying this, that for me, I just want it to be treated normally. I want it to be treated as normally as you treat, say, any other consultation with any other professional. And
So this was the part 1 of this episode, and in the next episode